Vanessa Jones, and I'm a Community Service Officer Supervisor. That's a mouthful. And I've been at the department for 24 years, but I've been in this position for almost 10 years.
Awesome. And so how did you first become interested?
So, because I've been on the department for 24 years, I spent the first 15 years working the front desk at each of the divisions. It's called a police service representative. And that was helping people behind a desk. So when this position became available, it was out in the field. Very similar, taking police reports, but in this aspect of it, it was helping support the officers, but most importantly, helping the community. Just to kind of give you a little background of what we do, our unit was designed for two purposes, is to help the officers take some of their responsibilities, their workload off of them. And those types of calls would be, property crimes, like your car's broken into, your storage unit's been broken into, your car's been stolen, something's been stolen, your car's been vandalized. We take those types of calls. We also deal with abandoned vehicles. We help with traffic control at traffic accidents, events. We help the fire department. So by doing that, taking those calls off of them, they can focus on other calls that are more emergent. The calls we go to have no suspect information and it's not in progress. They focus on the calls where there is suspect information and the call is in progress. So we have no arresting authority. We can't pull anybody over, but our focus is just to take those calls off of them. But in addition, that benefits the community because we can be more responsive. Because if officers still had to do that, those calls would hold and hold and hold until they could get to them. So that's kind of what our role is. We help the officers, we help the community. So it's twofold. As far as the CSO position in and of itself, all the primary requirements are 18 years of age, high school diploma, and then I think it's 1 year practical experience working with the public because there is a lot of interaction. So for me it was easy to kind of, I've had that 15 years on, obviously I'm older, so I had those basic fundamentals needed to, I did need to apply, I had to go through the interview process and then I was accepted. But after that, if you are accepted, if you're vetted through the application process and then you go through backgrounds, you successfully complete that and they offer you the position, you are required to go through an 8-week training academy. In addition to that, after you successfully complete the academy, then you go into 9 weeks field training because we need to ensure that what you learn in the classroom, you can now practically apply it out in the field. So there are those requirements, and we ourselves as the CSO supervisors, as well, CSOs, community service officers, as well as the full-time, we put on the academy. We teach the courses. So it's anything from Colorado revised statutes, defensive tactics. You do have to get sprayed with pepper spray. We teach you traffic control and driving. We have verbal communications, how to write a police report. Writing parking tickets, understanding municipal code, local laws and state laws. So I mean, it's very comprehensive. We have a lot of scenarios, and what have you. We really try to make it where they feel confident going into the field. And field training is when they put it all together and they have a trainer right next to them. So that trainer kind of really holds their hand initially and we slowly kind of step back. And let them take the reins in kind of that problem-based learning, failing forward. So once they successfully complete that, at that point, we release them into a solo CSO position. So they're able to go out into the car on their own. Obviously we're still there, but that's basically how we get started. And then it's through experience. And then the department offers trainings, and there's trainings that are sent to us through the state of Colorado that we can go to. For my position, that's experience, that's years on, but also going to those leadership courses as well. You saw the question, I wanted to jot down several of them because I think it's critical for anybody coming in to understand. It is exciting. It's absolutely exciting at face value. But there's a lot of traits that if somebody can bring to the table that would benefit them as well as us. And some of the ones I jot down was just being adaptable. You know, you can't go into a situation and think it's cookie cutter. You got to be able to adapt. You need to be confident, and that's why we start off with a classroom training and field training. We really need to ensure that you have those fundamentals. If you're going to write a parking ticket, you better ensure that the signage is there, you know, that you have the legal authority to do so. You know, if you're taking a motor vehicle theft, does it meet the elements of the crime? You know, if you're doing traffic control, do you have your cone set up correctly? Are you safe? Is the scene safe? What if you get flagged down and someone's in distress? Can you talk on the radio? Can you keep calm? So those are some examples, but you need to be disciplined. I think it's hugely important to everybody, not just in this field, to be empathetic. That is huge. It's, you know, for us, we're talking to or going out to someone who's a victim of a crime. We need to slow it down. We need to listen. You need to be a good listener. You need to be a good communicator, because they've just been through something very traumatic. Same with the traffic accident. You get there, people are upset, they're rattled. You know, you need to be there, be that calming voice, assure them that they're safe, you know, that everything's going to be okay, and explain the process to them, you know, and keep it simple. Keep it simple. You need to be flexible. You've got to be friendly. You know, in this job, it's hardworking. It is government work. You know, we put a lot on our people, but you got to be a hard worker. You really do. You got to be committed. Honest. This department is huge on integrity. It always has been. From day one, when I first started 24 years ago, it's all about integrity. You know, it's all about being honest. And that's one reason I stayed here, is not only just because of the work community, but because from the get-go, they talk about honesty, you know, and we advocate that with our CSOs as well. Be helpful, you know, and intuitive. And when I say intuitive, for us, you know, we are civilians and we don't have any arrest authority. We try to keep our CSOs out of situations where they're, you know, as a suspect. But sometimes we can't always protect them from that. You have to be situationally aware. You have to be aware of your surroundings. You have to be conscientious of your officer safety. So we teach them about that, you know, and we have been confronted. We've come into some dangerous situations. The best we can do is teach our CSOs and, you know, encourage them to learn from mistakes and grow from those mistakes, and just be situationally aware. So when I say intuitive, that's what I mean, is just being situationally aware. You have to be able to work independently in a solo capacity, but also as a team. And some people thrive in a solo environment, and some people thrive in a team environment, and you have to be flexible and adaptable to both. Because there's times that you'll be out on a call by yourself, you know, and you got to work through it. You just get through it. You help that individual. There's other times where we have to go in groups because the situation may be, you know, a little bit, there might be a danger component. It might be hazardous. So we work together as a team. One person's processing the vehicle, the other person's the eyes and the ears. You know, so you got to work to a team. Or maybe it's one person taking photos and the other person doing fingerprinting or DNA. So yeah, I mean, those are some of them. You got to be resourceful and respectful, obviously. I think if you give respect, you get it. And that really helps create better communication between you and that individual if you show respect. When I say resourceful, there is many facets to our position and many responsibilities. We have so much to learn, but being resourceful to the community is huge, because we may not be able to help them, but if you know a city entity or an outside entity that can, give them that information. Call them. call that resource and be like, hey, I have this individual, you know, and they just got evicted, for example, and do you have any resources available for them? So having those resources, you know, whether it be a situation like that, or maybe they're looking for a restraining order, or maybe you know, just different things in the community that we can help them with. Just tons and tons of stuff out there. The more that we are empowered and we are knowledgeable about that, we can impart it to the individual, and we could take it a step further and call that resource and say, hey, can you help, or at least tell me who they can contact. So those are just some of the traits that would be helpful, and if they don't have it initially, we will try to teach them. The typical starting salary for an hourly, so they strictly work 29 hours a week, and we call them CSO hourly employees. They start off at approximately $17 an hour. My position, as far as the CSO supervisor position, starts off at approximately $25 an hour. Each year it can increase for the full-time. For the hourly, I think it's every 3 years, but for the full-time, it's annually, and then, you know, as you move into the position further into years, you can get increases based on your performance. So the environment is both in an office and out on the street, and primarily it's out on the street in a cruiser. You know, we work at the divisions with the officers. It's important to be immersed in with them for camaraderie. They need to get to know us, we need to get to know them. It is primarily out in the field in a cruiser. You never know what you're going to get or what the environment's going to be. Your first call out of the chute, you know, because when you get on shift, once you get dressed, suited out, you go to briefing, and then you go out on the street, and then dispatch, as calls come in, they'll send you a call. So you never know what you're going to get. So it could be your first call out of the chute could be, you know, a 4-car traffic accident blocking in the middle of the intersection with injuries, and sometimes we're the first ones on scene. So you have to kind of assimilate that and, you know, take care of those people, wait for the officer, you know, and set up traffic control. Excuse me. Once you get that done, you know, once the scene is clear, you're clear, dispatch can send you to a burglary. You go to that burglary, and while on scene you realize, oh, I got some good fingerprints here, you know, and you're dusting for fingerprints. Then you have a lot of paperwork you need to do. You got to write up the reports and put your evidence in. You know, once you get done with that, you could get an abandoned vehicle, where you go out, you check the vehicle, run the plate, it's stolen. You know, on that point you're processing a vehicle and what have you. So, you know, you never know what you're going to get. So the environment changes. As far as weather conditions, I mean, it could be snowing out and you're helping people who are stuck. It could be, you know, just raining and there's an intersection that's completely underwater and you're standing out in the rain doing traffic control. You could be out in the heat for 2 hours for a fatal traffic accident where you can't let anybody through. But in terms of our team dynamic at my division, you know, we meet up where we can. Whether I'm in the office and they're coming on shift, you know, it's the hello, what's going on, what's happened, any, you know, suggestions, concerns. We keep that open line of communication going throughout the day. They can call me anytime. And sometimes we're all out in the field. I go out and help, I'll back them on calls. You know, so that team dynamic is so important, so hugely important, you know, and sometimes I tell you the environment is hazardous. You know, it's working on the interstate, for example. I mean, we're typically the caboose. So we're the ones protecting the scene, trying to divert traffic. So, you know, sometimes paying attention or they're going too fast. So it can be a little bit scary. The other thing is sometimes we help firefighters if they're working a fire. We're doing traffic control to keep people out so they don't run over the hoses or they themselves get in a dangerous situation. So it's smoky and what have you. And the other component of this job too is sometimes we get confronted. and we got to call for cover. We got to call for an officer because we have a dangerous situation. So the environment is not typical, but it's very different, from day to day. In addition to what we just talked about, was we work with officers. We're at the divisions with officers. We're at the divisions with sergeants and lieutenants and commanders. And they really value what the CSOs do and how we contribute. And we participate in meetings and we talk in briefings, which is called their lineup. They all go to lineups when they first start their shift, the officers do, and the CSOs go as well because we learn from them and they learn from us. We get to participate in their trainings and what have you. So we're working side by side with them, every day. And there's a great open line of communication. If we have a concern or we're seeing a pattern crime, we can go back to the detectives and talk to them about, hey, I took this case and I got really good video on the suspect, and they'll work with us and they'll help us out. In addition to that, we have other civilian employees, that the gals that work the front desk, and which is what I used to do, and we have the administrative technicians, that work with detectives or the commander's secretary or what have you. So everybody contributes, and you're working with a ton of different people. That's where communication, really becomes important. I'd say the benefit is I went into this job from the get-go 24 years ago wanting to help the community, wanting to make a difference. And you try to be that sounding board and provide resources and education to the community. So when this job came about where I could actually be in the field, I felt like I was taking it up a notch, because not only are you still doing those fundamentals, but at this point it's practical. I love the fact that we get to fingerprint and that we get to do DNA, that we're collecting video evidence, and we actually do contribute to and help solve cases. And it's awesome when you get an email from a fingerprint examiner that's like, hey, we got a hit back on your fingerprints. You're like, wow. You just feel empowered and like you're really making a difference, and getting to talk to the victim. We know it's very difficult, what happened, and trying to go through the process, and I'm walking them through the steps, and then telling them going forward, this is what we can and can't do, and this is what you can expect. But we also talk about crime prevention, and we hand them brochures, we have a lot of victims. We also take identity theft and fraud cases. And it's really a struggle for me that our elderly victims who have experienced identity theft or fraud, so it's about empowering them and saying, okay, watch out for these emails, or if you get these phone calls, do this and that, or don't do this and that. We can give them brochures, and we have crime prevention officers that work at every division that we can use as a resource that they can also talk to and help them out. And that's for neighborhoods, that's for businesses. So to me, it's a benefit working with the community face to face. Even if I don't get that opportunity over the phone, and just taking as much time as we need to go over the report and to assist them with what did occur and try to make them feel better, and what have you. And in addition to that, the other component is working with the officers, knowing that we're helping and taking the burden off of them. Although they're still pretty overwhelmed, but just knowing that they don't have to, be as concerned with these calls because we're handling it. That's amazing. And the sacrifices that they make and risking their life, you just feel empowered by what they do. And you saying thank you every day just isn't enough, but it's just appreciating all of them and what they do, and being able to help in some way, I think one of our biggest challenges is retention of employees, and that's in every facet. I feel like it's an epidemic across the country, absolutely. But I see it with the CSO unit. I see it with police officers. I see it with PSRs. I see it with records and ID clerks, call takers, dispatchers. Retention of employees has been very difficult. And I think we all crave that diversity. I think we all crave new generations or a multitude of different generations. We need that creativity. We need that new perspective. And once we get that consistency, we can propel the department forward. We can all work together to have that new perspective, that fresh perspective, and just really help the community. But retention, I think, is the biggest challenge for all of us. And if we can get some good, hardworking people in here that just can help us, help the community, then that's what it's really about. It is and it isn't. In terms of family, you really have to have a strong family unit. I think in law enforcement, I'm just being completely candid and honest. I don't think a lot of new persons into law enforcement may see it, at least initially, but you will learn it as you go on. Because you work shift work, you could be working midnight shift for 3 years. How does that work when you have a kiddo and you don't have family here? You have your spouse, your significant other, but you're struggling with daycare issues or what have you. In addition to that, we work holidays, we work weekends. You might have 2 kiddos that are going to be opening up Christmas presents. When you're not there, you're at work, and you just make it work. You have that communication with your spouse, and you know what, maybe it's opening presents the night before on Christmas Eve, or in addition to that, some challenges is we encounter people who've experienced a tragic event. In addition to that, we sometimes see horrific scenes. And we have to process that. We have to assimilate it. And I think that sort of that open and honest communication with your family, you don't have to share the details. You don't have to go into specifics. But as long as they know that you're okay and maybe you're processing something, that would certainly help. But I think that would, contribute to the success of the family unit. It is a tough career field. And especially given the current climate, we're all working hard, to build that bond with the community and forge better relationships. But it can be difficult on families. So the environment is not just our little unit; it's so much bigger than that. And I think that's what's cool about this position is at least from my perspective, because with respect to those that work behind a desk and work hard and do an amazing job, I have that option. We have that option to work behind the desk and go out in the field, work with other people, at different locations, at different buildings, at different units. So the environment definitely changes. It is really fast-paced. It's fun. It's exciting. Sometimes it's an adrenaline rush, and it's never a dull moment, and you never know what you're going to get. Our inbox is different. It's dispatch sending us to a call, which it just came in. It could be a 911 traffic accident, and it's on the interstate, and you're the first one dispatched as a CSO, because they don't necessarily have officers available at the time. So immediately your mind's moving and your mind's going, and you have to be able to think on your feet and directionally know how to approach this. And get traffic set up and jump out and help the people. And so it's very fast paced. It's fun and exciting. It's never a dull moment, and again, it's unpredictable. But that's what's cool about it. And just for me, it's about helping. It's about supporting. And it's about being responsive to my team, to the officers, the staff, but most importantly, the community, and doing what we can. And I tell you, we can't always tell them yes. There's times that I have to issue a ticket. There's times that I have to tow a vehicle. But we try to work with the community. We do. If I have to issue a ticket, I'm going to try to find them first. If I have to tow a vehicle, I'm going to try to find them first. And let's work something out. If you move it right now, we could, avoid this whole issue altogether, But, it's just about being, that support, and trying to help out. I think that our unit is going to grow. I think we're going to grow in numbers, and I think it's critical at this point too that we do to continue to support the officers. If we're able to grow, then we can answer our calls in a more timely manner. Then maybe we can expand our responsibilities to take on more off the officers. And ultimately, again, it's a benefit to the community because then we're in turn more responsive to their needs. But I also see our unit growing where right now our chain of command is a lieutenant, and a commander. But I can see us expanding where we have a civilian unit manager. And then in addition to that, maybe a training coordinator, because we do these academies sometimes 2-3 times a year. If we can get that training coordinator, maybe we could keep those other CSOs out on the street because that person is primarily focused on the training academy or in service, because we do in service once or twice a year just like officers do. That's to keep us current, that's to keep us fresh with community needs, with our needs to keep us safe. So having a training coordinator would be awesome. But in addition, as we grow and expand, that might be more full-time CSOs. And then we might need, more CSO supervisors. So, I think that we're definitely going to grow. I think we need to continue that support. If someone is interested in this field, I always encourage a ride along with a police officer or CSO so you see the day in the life of. That's like, not like you're interested in the career but you don't really know what it's about. Go out there, and ride with a CSO, ride with a police officer. Then you can really physically see and experience what they go through. Again, whether it's going to a traffic accident, whether it's processing a stolen vehicle for evidence, towing an abandoned vehicle, having to issue a ticket, it's in order to really see it for what it's worth, go out and do that ride along and experience it. And in addition to that, to prepare for it, if you say, I've done the ride along or I just reading the job description, I'm super duper interested in doing it. Maybe take some law enforcement classes. I always encourage volunteerism, whether it's with a department or anywhere. Several different organizations need volunteers. It gives you that public exposure. It gives you that exposure to helping people. And just having life experience, whether it's a part-time job or a full-time job, whatever it may be, just having that life experience. Because believe it or not, when we teach at our academies, we try to pull that out, of our students. What's your life experience? What has been your experience with this type of subject area? How did you process that? How did you get through it? Because everybody has something to bring to the table. And I think it's important to acknowledge what people have been through, in order to utilize that in this field going forward. So, yeah.